Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. It's Wednesday. It's time for another episode of the Leadership Toolkit, which is your definitive leadership growth podcast. I am stoked. I am so super excited today. I was just talking with my guest here backstage for a few minutes beforehand. And as you all know, this show, I bring guests on from all different verticals of business, from all over the world with all different titles, people that are leaders from the middle of an organization all the way up to CEOs and entrepreneurs and owners and coaches and speakers. And today I have got an amazing guest. We'll talk about wins. We'll talk about losses. We're going to talk about stuff that I could probably sit and talk with him for 4 or 5 hours about. But without further ado, let me get him introduced. Curtis McCullom is my guest today. He helps CEOs and founders and entrepreneurs eliminate blind spots that have silently held them back. And how does he do this? He's a certified clinical hypnotherapist. He's a coach. He has a specific framework called the Legit Framework. He hosts a podcast called the Legit Mindset Podcast. And we are going to have a phenomenal conversation today because he talks all about leadership growth, mindset, breaking through barriers, breaking through walls. Ladies and gentlemen, Curtis McCullom, thank you so much for joining me on the Leadership Toolkit today, man.
Thank you, Mike, for having me, man. I was listening to your opening, that 30 seconds of talking,
Yes,
man, that is some powerful stuff. That hypnotic voice, and I'm like, oh my God, I was blown away. So I appreciated that little spin, that little opening right before
Absolutely.
your show.
Got to fill a little time, gather some audience, get some folks in here. So.
You got my attention. So, hey, let's go, man.
All right. So if you would first do me a favor, obviously I shared just a couple sentences of who Curtis is. Would you please spend a few minutes and just expand on, who you are, what you do, where did you get started, and how did you get to where you are now?
This journey I've been on now is about a 40-year journey. I started way back when. We were talking a little bit about it before the show. I wanted to be a sales trainer and a motivational speaker. So I studied all the greats, Tony Robbins, to Zig Ziglar, to Jim Rohn was one of my favorite, to Brian Tracy, all those guys, because I wanted to be the best. And so I started in sales because I wanted to be, hey, I'm using this stuff and I want to show people that it actually works. So I did. I got into sales and I was number one in the company in less than a year and a half. So not only I'm an entrepreneur, not only am I a leader, I'm also a CEO. So I understand. I've been in your shoes. I walk in your shoes every day. And so fast forward, about 6 years ago, I was in the financial services industry for about almost 35 years. I was a certified financial planner. I was a chartered financial consultant. And 6 years ago, me and my wife looked at each other and says, hey, we have enough assets and things. Won't you do what you truly love to do? Won't you just help people become the best version of themselves? So I became an executive coach. And I'm like, wow, finally I'm an executive coach. I hated it because coaching within itself was not my calling. What it was for me was, what made me successful was the fact that I utilized hypnotherapy and I utilized neuro-linguistic programming in my practice when I was in sales and when I was in management. And so I went back and got a certification as a clinical hypnotherapist. I'm a master practitioner in neuro-linguistic programming, and I'm also a master practitioner in mental and emotional release. I combine those modalities into what I call now the legit mindset, which is learning, growing, expanding, and transforming so that we can help individuals to make lasting change quickly, easily, without a lot of effort. So, man, I'm just pleased and I'm just really excited to be here today.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you. So I want to hit on a few definitions because
Yes.
I'm familiar with, probably some people in my audience familiar with NLP or neuro linguistic programming, but can you break some of these down and even hypnotherapy, right?
Yes.
What we traditionally out in the layman land in the world associate, like we see the guy or gal on stage go do the hypnosis thing and we go, oh, okay, and then they have them do something silly or funny. And that's what people associate often with hypnosis or hypnotherapy. So can you expand? Let's break down first those three different columns that you're sharing. What is the clinical hypnotherapy piece, kind of in a nutshell?
Okay.
What is NLP? And then you said, was it
mental and emotional release?
So you break that down a little bit and let's expand on it.
Okay, let's start with hypnotherapy. Number one, hypnotherapy is something that we all naturally do. We don't even know that we're doing it. We do it every day. Now, people do see stage hypnotherapy. When they see stage hypnotherapy, people are quacking like a duck or barking like a dog. I tell people when they come to see me, if you want to do that, we could do that, but that's not what we're here for. Basically, what we're there for to actually help them to do trance or do on purpose and with purpose. What I mean by that is that if we can suspend your critical mind long enough so that now we can communicate with your subconscious mind, then we can have faster and lasting change. An example would be only 5% of our behavior is conscious and 95% of our behavior is on the subconscious level. What most leaders try to do, they try to force themselves with willpower and with analysis and with all of this. I got to do it. I'm going to try to do it without consulting their subconscious mind. That's why it makes it so difficult. So what I do is we help you go into trance. You've been in trance before. You've experienced it. You've been driving on the freeway or on the road, and all of a sudden you mentally let go and your car almost drives itself home safely. What happened? You were in trance. You suspended your critical mind and your subconscious mind took over and you came home safely. That's what we do, but we do it on purpose and with purpose so that now we can speak to those things that are now blocking you from becoming the best version of yourself. So the first thing we do, we have the hypnotherapy piece. Now we go into the neuro-linguistic program, and that's really just communicating with yourself. We all what we call run strategies. Mm-hmm. A strategy is how do we actually process information? What happens with most leaders is that your strategy has a bug. It's basically flawed. Basically, think about a computer program, language, mental, linguistic language programming is the app. So we're all running these apps in our mind. So what I try to do and what I do is we figure out where is the glitch in your app. What is the trigger that's driving this bad behavior? And we fixed it quickly, easily, without a lot of effort with neuro-linguistic programming. Now, one of the things we do is we help you get rid of anger, sadness, guilt, limiting beliefs with mental and emotional release. And what that does, it's a powerful modality that I utilize with my clients, is that because within 10 minutes, sometimes or less, we can get rid of 25 years of negative thinking in one particular area, like anger or guilt or sadness, or I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, all of these things in less than 10 minutes per challenge, because we go to the root cause of that. Think about a gestalt, or think about a string of pearls, and all strings have a belief, or like we're just at anger. Okay. So basically, so this anger has been trailing you since when you were a baby. And what it was, your mom didn't give you the bottle fast enough. So you got angry, but you didn't have a label for it, but you felt that feeling or emotion. And so that feeling kept coming up until you got about 3 or 4 or 5. And somebody says, boy, you're angry. Now that anger went all the way back to that first anger and formed what we call a gestalt. What we do, we take that string of pearls and we pull the root cause of that anger out. That means all the rest of the anger is fallen away. And now you get over it easily without a lot of effort. So in a nutshell, that's very high level of what I do.
Sure.
Quickly.
So again, I love all of this study. I love what it is that you do. Let's get down to, so what are some of the things that you've seen? Because you kind of alluded to this, Curtis, like, okay, well, if you have this anger or you have this frustration, what are some of the most common things or common themes that you see when it comes to higher level leaders, CEOs, managers that you're connecting with? Because something you mentioned was like, well, what about, a fear of success? How have we programmed our brain there? What are some of the most common things that you see with higher level leaders, people that are in leadership roles?
And that's a great question. It's interesting to me is that on the outside, on paper, they look like they're extremely successful.
Sure.
And they are. on the inside, they still feel like I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. Or on the outside, they do extremely well in managing people, in generating millions of dollars in revenue, but they go home to an empty house because the relationship at home does not match their success at work. So what we do is we figure out, think about it like this. When they come to me, they normally come with issues.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're looking for is what we call the greater problem. What is that one thing that's actually causing all of this other behavior? And once we figure out what that thing is, and usually it goes back to, I'm not worthy, and I'm not good enough. Even though they look on the outside, they look like they feel like they are, but
Sure.
deep down inside, they're like, oh my God, if they find out who I truly am, like the imposter syndrome, they won't like me. Or when we make a decision as a CEO, we like, is it a decision? Would they like me? These things like that. So usually that's kind of the root of what we work with. On the surface level, they might come to me for procrastination. Well, it's not really procrastination, is another level above
Gotcha.
that we really work on.
And do you see a common theme of like what caused that, or is it just all over the place?
Yeah, I love to use this story. I mean, and I think because, like I said before, I'm a leader, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a CEO. Yep. So I go through the same stuff that everyone else goes through. And this is a true story about me. I love to use myself as an example. About 8 months ago or so, I was still struggling with the fact that success is hard and difficult. Success is hard and difficult. That was the thinking that I was having. That's the limiting belief that was actually running. The program, we talked about programs. Yes. That was the program that was running in my mind. So I called one of my buddies, and I called him Coach Kev, and says, Coach Kev, I need you to do mental and emotional release on me. Think about it, because even though I might be the best facilitator, I need someone else to help me. So sometimes you can do it on your own, but think about a heart surgeon, right? I'm the best heart surgeon in the world, but it'll be very difficult for me to operate on myself, right? I called Coach Kev, and we went through mental and emotional release. And what we do is we ask, what was the root cause the first time this ever happened? The first thing that my subconscious mind, not my conscious mind, came up with was, is it around 2? I didn't know what was happening around 2. I'm 2 years old. I have no idea, no memory of that. But the belief that success is hard and difficult came up with age 2, where we flow back to that event, and I got new learnings from it. The subconscious mind loves to learn. Once it learns something, it releases the negative energy around that feeling or emotion. For me, is that I'm strong and I'm persistent. Those are the new learnings I got from that. We floated back to now and gave all of those things, all the times I sabotaged myself because I thought it was hard and difficult. I gave it that new learning. I came back to now, I feel great. Well, I did a test. I called my mom. Thank God she's still with us. I said, Mom, what was happening in my life at around age 2? She said, oh, sweetie, I remember. I told you I'm a country boy from Mississippi. She said, oh, sweetie, I remember. She said, when you were 18 months, your sister was being born, and I did not want 2 babies in diapers at the same time. Mm-hmm. So I kind of forced you to be potty trained at 18 months. A boy being potty trained at 18 months, if you've ever had a child, you know that 18 months is very difficult.
Yes.
And so this is what she said. This is the kicker here. She said, oh, and it was hard and difficult for you to be potty trained. The same thought that came to me at age 50 or 60 that has been trailing me since 2 is the same thought and belief that I got when I was about 18 months years old. So that's what we're talking about, that type of movement and understanding that a lot of these programs, guys and gals and whoever you are as leaders, a lot of these things are running underneath the surface, and you have no idea why you're behaving the way you're behaving.
Man, that's powerful. It's really powerful. What I think is powerful, there's a couple of things that I take from this. I find it interesting that, and what you're saying is like, hey, my mom's using the same language that I've been using to myself because she's probably, and anyone would agree with this, especially if you have kids, like that very young age kids. What do they say now? Certainly under 10, 12, 15, like they're impressionable. We're
Oh,
learning, so on and so
absolutely.
forth, especially that young age where we're learning everything. We're learning language. We're learning to crawl. We're learning to walk. We're learning. So it's like everything that you're taking in. So I find it interesting. I mean, that it crazy that the same thing you're saying to yourself, your mom says, "Oh yeah, it was this."
Yes.
Well, probably because some of that was, and I'm assuming here, so you don't, uh, but that's some of the stuff. And this is from me being a parent myself. Your mom was
Right.
probably saying, "Man, why is this so hard for you? Why is this so difficult, Curtis? Why you got to do?" And she's programming you, right? And again, completely inadvertently, completely
Oh,
innocently, she's just working. But that's her terms, and you carry that. The other thing that I think is powerful, and people need to take note of this. And I love that you shared this. And I was going to ask this later in the show. You needed somebody else to walk through that.
oh, absolutely, absolutely, and that's what we're talking about. I mean, a lot of people said, "Well, I don't need a coach." Well, think about it. What's his name? Michael Jordan, one of the
Mhm.
best basketball players ever, had
Mhm.
a coach,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
LeBron James has a coach. He has several different coaches on his team, everything from nutrition to his physicality, everything. So we all need someone to help us walk it through. Now, this is the thing: is like when we talked about. I want people to understand. I
Mhm.
do not blame my mom.
Sure. No,
Right. No,
absolutely.
no, no. I'm just wondering what people I love the point that I know you were kind of gingerly walking through it, but I want to come out and just say it. I was not blaming my mom, right? Because of the fact that this is the thing. That's all the resources she had at the time.
Sure.
So in empowerment comes and when individuals say, regardless of what has happened in my life, I'm taking the responsibility for it. What does that mean? That means that I have the power to respond. I have the power to look at a situation totally different than what it actually was. I have the power to reframe that situation. So
Mhm.
even though it was something that was done, a lot of things that happen in our life, guys, is because of the fact that something offhanded. It wasn't out of malice. It wasn't trying to be mean. It was just the fact that it was said. An 18-month trial, that's what I learned.
Yep. Well, if I can jump in here,
Yeah.
here's one of the things that's interesting. I have a sales manager that worked for me years ago. The background heavily is auto industry. And I remember it's sort of the self-fulfilling prophecy. And as leaders, people need to be aware of this because you're relating it to something early childhood and going on
Yeah.
through our life. We as leaders have that same impact on our people even now. We're
Yes.
anchoring things into their system, and by anchoring meaning you're repeating and telling things. You know exactly what I'm talking about, Curtis. Like you're and I remember this. I remember this vivid as can be. I had a guy that worked for me, and my own fault, I will own this. And I was like, all so often he was selling cars. And I'm like, dude, why do you have such a tough time closing? Dude, why do you have such a tough time closing? And I remember this younger sales manager friend of mine that he goes, dude, it's the self-fulfilling prophecy. The reason he has a tough time closing is because you keep telling him that. And he says, just change it. And he says, and this was when I first learned about anchoring. You'll appreciate this. He says, just after he does a good job, start tapping him on his shoulder and tell him, hey man, that was a wonderful job. You did
Yes.
such a good job. And so I said, okay. Oh, you got it. And over the course of probably a week, 10 days, it wasn't a really long time. Every time that this young salesperson, I remember his name, I won't share it here on the air, but I remember it like it was yesterday. Every time he did something good, he, pulled the car up for us, bought lunch for the whole crew, did all that. It was like, man, that is such a good job. Thank you so much. And I tapped him right there on the shoulder.
Right.
Well, the crazy thing that happened then is he would come in. I remember where his desk was at. I remember where I was sitting. He'd come in and have this conversation with me. He's like, boss, man, he goes, I just can't close this customer. And I was like, dude, you do such a good job. You'll be fine. And plain as day, tap him on the shoulder. He'd go back out reinvigorated and we'd end up selling a car.
Mm.
And I mean, there's so much power that we have. And I'm not saying like, it's that edge of hypnotism or NLP or like I said at the time I didn't have a term for it. I mean, this is 20 years ago in business.
Right.
And he goes, all you're doing is you're creating the self-fulfilling prophecy for him, right? Either you're going to tell him he's not a good closer or you're going to tell him that he's so good at it. And so that anchor became, I just tapped him right here on the shoulder and it was like, all right, game on. Right. And so we, as leaders, that's one thing I want people to hear when they're watching the show is it doesn't it doesn't have to be the 2-year-old that we're trying to
it does not
going. This happens in our everyday lives. It happens with our spouses. It happens with our kids, right? We know better now. It happens with our teams, the people that are running with us, that are often working for us and running for us. Like you have so much power and influence as a leader if it's framed up properly. So
I mean, that's true. I think about the way a person is actually programmed is number one is from a person of authority.
Yes.
I trust you. I mean, to give you an example, another example was that 13 years ago, my brother-in-law went into the doctor and says, hey, you got less than a year to live. And he's like, I don't think so. I don't believe you. And he lasted another 13 years. Wow. Because of and man, now the flip side is that I've seen it where a person says, you got 5 weeks to live. 5 weeks to the day they drop dead. What's the difference? Because of the fact that they accepted and decided that was okay. So as managers and as leaders, we have to be extremely careful about how we communicate with the people that are around us because of the fact that because we are leaders, we have influence and we have authority. And so when a person of authority says something, that automatically and the other person says yes to it. Yeah, it's like, okay, I believe it. They start to act as though whatever you said is true. And it could not. This is a big one. I want people to understand is that there is about 11 million bits of information coming to us every second.
Yep.
11 million. And we can only process about 50 bits of that information. So think about it. Our model of the world, what we see is not true. And if we take it as truth, we can influence someone else based on our truth, and our truth could be way off. So we have to understand what are that 50 bits that we're actually transferring for translating to that individual, so to make sure that they get what they need.
Yes, 100%. I will share. Here's what's interesting, and we'll kind of close out this portion. I have a couple other questions. Like I said, we go on for hours on this show. So a couple of things. One, I want to make sure I've had this up on the screen a few times, but I want to make sure that people see it and they hear it if they're listening on the audio podcast. I would encourage you, if you are interested, connect with Curtis, both on LinkedIn and on his website. It's, linkedin.com/n/Curtis McCullom. So it's CURTIS MCCULLOM. So you can connect with him there. You can also check out curtismccullom.com. So if you go to curtismccullom.com, and that is bespoke human
potential coaching. Yes.
Okay. Bespoke human potential coaching. To me, we were talking beforehand. It is easy. Just go to curtismccullom.com and it'll send you there. So interestingly, and I'd love to share an interaction. I literally had this interaction this morning, and as a young lady works for me, and I was giving her some coaching that I thought, if I do say so myself, was good coaching.
Right.
And I stopped because she looked at me stunned. Like it was like I just smacked her in the forehead. Right.
Right.
And I'm like, what is wrong? And she's literally said this to me. Mind you, I'm talking to her just like I'm talking to you now. And she says, right, well, you're yelling at me. And I'm like, what? I said, well, I'm yelling at you. And so I'm like, stop. Okay, stop. Because I think as leaders, we need to acknowledge those things. Like when you're saying, hey, we have influence and so forth. And again, this is literally happened 2 hours ago.
Right.
And I stopped her because she's like, well, you're yelling at me, and was like seriously upset. And I'm like, no, I said, I'm giving you coaching. I said, stop for a minute. And I literally made her stop in just silence. I said, look me in the eyes for a second. Just stop. I am not yelling at you.
Right.
I said, I want to be clear. And like, so we had to have this slow down interaction because it was one of those where it's like, I said something that I thought was, and like I said, it was great coaching. Now, when we slowed down and had the conversation, again, it triggered something in her that she was like, well, you're yelling at me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Right. So, I mean,
well, that's our 50 bits.
Right.
So basically think about it. Whatever you said or how you said it triggered something that someone else said that made her think that you were screaming or talking at her loud. And the question is, was it true?
That was what we walked through, because that was the thing. I will tell you exactly what I said. It was actually on a phone conversation, and she was going through explanation. And I looked at her after she had finished with the person, and I said, hey, that was too long. It needs to be faster. Just follow exactly what the script is on your screen as we were talking about something.
Right.
And that was too long was like completely triggering for her. Like, well, you're yelling at me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I crossed my heart. It's awesome that you say that, because I looked at her and I said, I'm coaching. I said, is what I'm telling you true? And she goes, well, yeah, it was, but this. And then I said, no, but just yes or no, so we walked through that. It was anyway, that triggered my thoughts from this morning. Yeah. So a couple of things. One of the things that I do want to get to, because you help condition people to win. You help we've spent quite a bit of time on talking about, okay, hey, how do we break through this, or we break through that, and some of the maybe the what I would say is the more negative side, like we can get trapped in the trauma, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So when you're talking about, hey, what are some daily mindset tools for people that want to win to help break through? Because that was one of the notes that you had on here was, hey, let's talk about some simple daily practices to help leaders break through and move forward.
So one of the things is that, and I tell individuals this all the time, especially as leaders, sometimes we forget this, is I mention it like this: it's okay, Mike, not to be okay. And sometimes as leaders, we try to always pretend that it's always okay. And one of the biggest things I tell individuals is that acknowledging that is not okay, that's okay. I remember way back when I first got started in motivation and coaching and motivational speaking, they used to tell us like, hey, it's raining outside. Look, it's raining outside, but don't think about the rain. Think about the sunshine. Well, heck, it's raining outside. It's okay for us to acknowledge the fact that it is raining. Then, because I can be empowered to make a decision. If I acknowledge it, it doesn't diminish who I am. Basically, now I become empowered, because now I can say it's raining outside. I have a choice. 3 choices I have because it is raining. Number 1, I need to get to point A to point B. So since it's raining, I need to put on my rain cap, my rain galoshes, my umbrella, and I need to get to point A to point B. Right? Or I can say it's raining outside, and today I want to be whimsical. I want to have fun. So I'm just going to walk in the rain and get soaking wet, but I still need to get to point A to point B because that's my goal. Or I can say it's raining outside. Today I don't feel like getting wet. And how can I be most productive inside while it's raining? So either way, it's okay for us to acknowledge that we're not okay. It's okay for us to acknowledge something is happening in our lives. And just acknowledgement alone, it becomes empowerment. So that's the first thing I always tell individuals. It's okay to acknowledge it. Now, if there is something else happening in your life, this is a 3-step process you can do. Number 1, we talked about acknowledging it. Say, hey, look, today I'm feeling sad. It's okay. And now, this is what I just said. This is so important. This is the neurolinguistic programming part of it is, I am feeling sad. I didn't say I was sad. I am sad. I said I'm feeling sad. To me, I'm not identifying with the feeling or emotion or the thought that I'm currently having.
Sure.
I'm just acknowledging that there is a thought passing. A thought or a feeling is just a A feeling is just something that passes through us that's trying to communicate with us and leave. That's all. And sometimes we hold on to it, or we look at it as something that we start to identify with. The people put labels on us all the time. Get rid of the labels and just deal with the feeling or emotion or the thought that you're currently having. I'm feeling afraid today. It's okay to feel afraid because that's normal.
Sure.
And so I'm feeling afraid. Now, the next step is to put your body into the parasympathetic nervous system needs to be activated, and it's activated by deep breathing. Do some deep breathing. I'm feeling sadness. So now I'm just going to take my time and stop and do some deep breathing. Diaphragmatic breathing is really good. It's kind of from the belly, sometimes 4 in and 4 out, like holding it for 4 and out for 4. Basically, what you're doing, you're telling the body, I'm safe and I'm okay. That puts us out of the fight or flight. The fight or flight is that, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Everything is happening. Everything's on. It's not. So basically, you're letting your body know that you're safe. Now, when you get into that nervous system is now settled down a little bit, the next thing I want you to do is ask yourself the question, what is it I need right now that will allow me to move forward? How can I now move forward? Listen to the questions again. What questions and how questions, not why questions. Why questions basically will take you deep into your subconscious and tell you all the things while you're doing what you're doing, how no good you are. You remember way back when you failed, No, you don't need the why stuff. You need what questions or how questions. That then what it does, it activates the power of who you are, the greater resource of yourself to now look out to figure out what is it that you can need to kind of move forward. And then what the next step is then take inspired action. When you come up with these things, take some inspired actions.
So let me recap. I love all this. I love it. Let me recap sort of the things that I heard.
Yes.
So one, I love this statement, and this didn't fall under them, but I would encourage people to write it down. Acknowledgement becomes empowerment. You said that, and that is really, really strong, because for better or for worse, for good or for bad, for wherever you're at, acknowledgement becomes empowerment. And that led into it's okay to not be okay. Like, just acknowledge, be real with where you're at. I think so often, and I do think there's something to be said, Curtis, for like, as a leader, like, we got to put on this happy face all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, yeah. You don't want to have your team hear you just complain unnecessarily without a solution. However, it's okay for your team to see that you're human, and sometimes things are tough. I was on another podcast earlier this morning, and that was one of the things we talked about. Your team needs to see that you have grit, that you can put your head down and go through things sometimes. And it's like, hey, this is not ideal. This is not where we expect it to be, but we're going to keep going this way, or we're going to find a new plan, or whatever that may look like. So I love that first statement. This is how I wrote it down. You said you don't want to identify with the term. I said feel, don't be. And so if that makes sense. Hey, I feel this way. It does not mean I am this way. And I think when you were saying, get rid of the labels, man, we do that. Not only do we as leaders, and I would love to think I'm past this point in my career, but so often we'll say, oh, I'm this. Well, I'm failing. I'm not doing well at this.
Right.
But what's worse as a leader, and you said this earlier, coming in from a position of authority, it's terrible when we do that to other people, and you go, oh, this person is not a good closer, or they're not a good salesperson, or they're not a good marketer, or they're not a good engineer, or they're not whatever. One of the huge detriments is you're helping them to identify with that's who they are. Correct. And it's like, well, no, I would encourage you as a leader, and I'm breaking this down sort of backwards for what Curtis is saying. Why do you feel that way? And then help coach them through that. If you're saying, hey, this person is not a good salesperson, why? Right? Ask yourself that question and give them some more definitive advice before you start to go put the label on them.
Absolutely.
You know, and then you said the deep breathing, love that. Parasympathetic nervous system, deep breathing. So slow down. I can't tell you how many times in my career where it's like, man, I just need to step away. And literally sometimes I'm just going to step into a bathroom for a minute so that, because no one's going to bother you in there. Right?
What you hope.
And just, yeah. Or so you hope. Yeah. All of a sudden you're at work and they're sliding notes under the door. You're like, come on, man. And then I also love the where you said taking inspired action.
Yes.
You can't just ask those what or how questions, and I think that's powerful too. And I know I'm repeating it because I really want my audience to hear this, and it's so good, Curtis, that like you're not asking what oh, well, why is this happening, why am I like this, why is this not working, and so forth, instead of what can I do to blank? How can I break this down differently? What, and taking it, and it's just, you can't just say, okay, what can I do to, let's use it from the leadership perspective that I started to swing in, and you could jump in on this at the end. If I think, and again, I use sales and marketing for a lot of my background stuff because that's my world. But hey, if I'm saying, hey, this person's not a good salesperson, and I start to put that label on them in my head, one of the things that you as a leader need to ask is, what is it that's making you say that? What specifically? How can I help them improve? Let's pick out 3 or 4 things. Not, why are they like this? Right. And so then that gives you a better path of, well, what is it that I want them to improve on?
Right. What specifically?
How can I help them improve on ABC? How can I help them improve getting more comfortable with their handshake on, because like it could be something silly, right? Well, they're not good at shaking hands because and this is me. I'm using myself as an example here. When I started in sales, I didn't think I was good at shaking hands. I was raised in a single mother home with a sister. I didn't have my dad or grandpa teaching me how to shake hands. We don't realize that's something that happens in life, right? And so I was like, oh, I'm not good at this, right? So what is it that needs to improve? How can I help it improve? And then what action are you going to take to help them improve? Powerful. So love that. Yes. Love that, Curtis. So here's the last set of questions I would love to ask you to, for now, because again, I just keep going. One of the things that you mention, and I think this sort of sums up all of your work, the clinical hypnotherapy, the NLP, mental emotional release, having your own coach, coaching other people, all of these pieces to help people navigate through their blind spots and really secure good success and good wins, not just in their business, probably in their life. To me, like if you're going to affect their business, sure, that's great. You can coach a CEO, but I know that you're going to coach the whole person. So one of the statements that was sent to me, it said, okay, leaders should lead more from alignment and really use their core values when it comes to decision-making and business and so forth. You said, or your belief, and not to put words in your mouth, if I misspeak this, just speak up, but you said, hey, that's one of the most underrated business tools we have at our disposal.
Which point?
Expand on that. Just leading from our core values and alignment to do decision making.
This is the thing.
Why is it so underrated?
The reason it's underrated is that if I ask you a question, I don't want to put you on the spot, and you don't have to answer the question. But the question is, when was the last time you actually elicited on your own personal core values? Most people have not. And core values is some of the deepest level of programming that actually drives most of our behavior. So the alignment part comes in is that I'm now crystal clear on who I am, and my values are not laced with baggage. Because when I do a value session, sometimes your values might be laced with baggage. Or the person says, I want to make a lot of money. And I said, what does that mean to you? Because I never want to be broke again. I don't want to be like my mom. She struggled with money. And basically that value for money is laced with baggage. We need to clean that up, right? But then when you're moving with alignment, think about it like this: as individual leaders, when you are clear, when you are now totally in line who you truly are, then you can lead easily and without a lot of effort because people see it in you. So the part of it, the core values is knowing who you are. What does it mean to you? What does this company mean to you? What are your core values when it comes to leadership? What is your core values when it comes to your career? And one of mine is that, I tell people all the time, one of my biggest values is love. But if I said love as a value, you would probably come up with that's a label that I have. But if you said love and I said love, we're talking about two different things. And that's one of the communication things we talk about with leaders is that when you say something, you need to clarify what you're saying so that your group understands. When I say love to my group of individuals, it means the transference of energy that connects to the heart. So, Mike, what it means to me is that I love the connection that we have because we're connecting from the heart. We're not, even though we're doing a podcast and we're having fun, no, it's a deeper connection than that. And my number 2 value is helping others. My helping others to me means empowering people to achieve their fullest potential. And making money for me means the exchange of energy that sustains impactful work. It means to grow. It means benevolence. It means lifestyle. Look, I love to give. If I don't make money, I can't give. If I don't make money, I don't have lifestyle. I'll tell people all the time, I'm saying my wife, she loves nice purses. She loves beautiful vacations. And so that, and when I'm exchanging this energy, that means that it's value.
Absolutely.
So when you're talking to a client and you're exchanging value, you deserve to be paid or compensated for that. That's the way it keeps moving. But this, what happens is that if we have a self-image problem, we come up with the value, we tell the client, and the client, you make yourself smaller and you don't feel good about it.
Right.
And it's not even exchange. So what I'm saying is that when we understand what are our values and what they truly mean to us, now we can transfer. That's what selling means to me, is transference of energy, meaning that I can transfer what I'm feeling. And that's what I used to do when I was in one-on-one sales, is that the person sees, sensed, and felt my presence. And before I said anything, most of the time the sale was closed before we even got to the actual product. Most of the time people have no idea what they were actually buying. They loved my energy, and they bought the energy more than they bought the product. Now, good, I was a person of ethics, so that I can tell them something that's beneficial for them.
Well, and I think that's one of the things. It's like the Spider-Man quote, right? With great power comes great responsibility.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
You gotta, I think it's really valuable. And I do think you pose a good question. Like, when is the last time that you spent time, and the way you said it was to elicit your core values, which that's a unique way to say it, because you didn't say, hey, when's the last time you visited your core values, or when's the last time you wrote them down? You specifically, and I picked up on that, said, when's the last time you elicited your core values? Which means to me, that's what it's saying, is like, when did I draw them out? When did I connect with those so much that I know without a shadow of a doubt, this is where I'm operating from?
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, hey, go write a bunch of positive words down on a sheet of paper. And hey, on the left side, write what your core values are. On the right side, write what you don't ever want to do. Like, come on. Like, there's clearly, and obviously in your legit framework, go through more of it than that. But and when you were talking about that, it was like, here's what's wild. I have a good friend of mine, good mentor. This took me back to like 2010, 2011. I remember sitting at a table with him, and I was so concerned about finances, and I was making more money than I ever had in my life. How does that even work? Literally, I was making more money than I ever had made, and I was so worried about finances. And then what happened, because I was worried about that, and he could see this in me, fortunately, it was a good friend and mentor. And because he could see that I was running scared in business.
Yes.
Because I was so worried about losing what I had attained. And we went through this whole activity, and he was worried. He went with me and said, well, what are some of your biggest fears? And I was like, I'm worried about going bankrupt and not making money. And he's like, I remember him looking at me plain as day. And this was one of those simple questions, Curtis.
Yeah.
He looks right at me and he goes, who made that rule?
Right.
And I'm like,
yeah.
Well, but at the time it was so real, man. And I'm like, can't I just hold on to this? And he's like, no. I was like, this is what happens if, and that has stuck with me to this day. I've coached many people through it when we would be having conversation, like really serious conversations. And sometimes I'll just look at someone and go, well, who made that rule? Because it's this thing that we've built up so heavily in our head. We've programmed ourselves.
Yes.
That, it's a completely broken programming. And then, I do love the fact that when you're leading from core values, I do think, one of the core values, I agree with you, in work is love. And I've had people tell me, I have had more than one person tell me, well, like, you can't say that in a business environment. I'm like, well, you can't tell me what to say. So, because to me, love is that genuine, like a actual genuine care for this person's well-being, that I'm going to help guide them through and serve them so that they can, that I can't produce the success for them, but if I can be a participant and coach, like, to me, that's real love and real value. Now, slightly different than yours, but
but that's important. No, think about it, but that's important. So that if you're in the people around you know that, that's what that means to me. So that when they come in your office, they know that you always seeking their best interest.
It makes me think of a quote. Here's and I remember this. I think the guy's name, and we could double check this, Rick Grosso. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I don't know, late 80s, early 90s, sales trainers for home building, real estate, something along those lines. I had some CDs given to me. Rick Grosso, I think, was the guy's name. I'll double check it and put it in the notes. But he made a quote. He says, and it aligns perfectly with what we're talking about. He says, who you are should speak so loudly that your people can't hear what you're saying. And I was like, that's a really, it's a little twisted, right? You're like, well, what does that mean, right? Who you are should speak so loudly that they can't hear what you're saying. So in other words, they should be able to see the love, see the character, see the integrity, see who you are at that core.
Yes.
And when you were talking about like eliciting your core values, even for myself, and I know you didn't specifically pose the question for me, but it's important. Like, sometimes we take a step back from where we are at in business and life with our families. This weekend, I'm going to a men's retreat. Why? Because I need to unplug and I need to really get recentered in on my faith with some other guys that are going through some of the same stuff, having some, Jim said earlier in the chat, like deeper connections, get some deeper connections, because the reality is too, and I have shared this before, the pastor at our church says, that some of us are like the rest of us. And we all think we're so isolated, but we're only isolated right here in our brain, right? And so it's like, the reality is, like, connect with other people. It's okay to walk through that with someone and have these discussions, just like Curtis and I are having right now. He says, hey, one of my core values is love. One of my core values is love. Are they in perfect alignment with each other? No, but they're pretty close. And they're both, but here's the thing also, and here's the thing also, they're both pure. They're both core and pure.
And another thing about it is, Mike, they're not supposed to be the same. Because we're the same, two different people. Right. The Absolutely. Thing is about it is that now, if I understand what your love means, and you understand my love, now we can communicate. And that's even in your relationship. It's like, most of the time we have not even stopped to ask our spouses or our partners what's important to them. And then what does that mean? They says, oh, you said, baby, I love you. She says, I love you too. You says, oh, okay, great. We love each other. Well, no, stop. No, hold it. What does it mean for you to feel love? She says, honey, when you take out the trash, that just connects to me. And you're like, trash? or when you say something to me, or every once in a while, if you just bring me a flower. So now we're communicating, truly communicating. because sometimes we're saying the same words, which is a label, but we don't understand what it means to that individual. What I've learned now is that I did a podcast the other day, is ask that one more question. Ask one more question. What does that mean to you? When you're talking to your employee, they come in and says, you know what? I'm very frustrated. Great. What does that mean to you? Because you think frustration means one thing. Well, my frustration is that could be something totally different. So ask that one question. What does it mean to you? That's free. That was not a part of the podcast. But
no, that's awesome. Well, we are at the tail end here. I would love to have you back on the show again too, Curtis, and stay in touch with you. It's been a really enjoyable conversation. You and I are in agreement on a lot of things, and I always like to find people that are like that. So that's a bonus content for me. So as we come to the tail end, any final thoughts to take us out for today's show? Anything that we didn't get to that you're like, man, I just want to get this out or whatnot? And while you're thinking of that, I'm going to share a couple of things.
Okay.
Jim says again, he says, that was good. We're saying the same things, just not in the same way. Yes. Valuable. Absolutely. Very good. Couple other items as a reminder for everybody. Again, whether you're watching or if you're listening online, make sure that you connect with Curtis. It's Curtis McCullom, CURTIS, McCullom, MCCULLOM. You can find him at Curtis-McCullom on LinkedIn, or you could go to curtismccullom.com, and it's bespoke human potential coaching. So you can connect with him. And obviously you can see, like, with all the, what Curtis does, like he loves people. So if you want to, man, if you want to grow, if you want to win, if you want to break through barriers that may have been holding you back forever, I would encourage you, connect, right? So any final thoughts to take us out today, Curtis?
Now, I just always like to remind people that, number one, that they have all the resources within themselves to become the best version of themselves. And sometimes we've forgotten who we are, and in that person within us, whatever you are, if you believe in the universe or you believe in God, whatever it is that you believe in, I truly believe that. And I called my spiritual guide is God. And I believe that sometimes we put him outside of ourselves, but he put something inside of us. And that we need to just stop and tap into that. I love this one passage of scripture, and this is what I want to leave with people, is when Paul said, he says, God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all we ask or think. This is the key to it. The universe or God is able to do whatever you need to be done within you, but this is what you have to do. You have to ask for it, and you have to think about it. And that asking there is not just a whimsical, I want it. No, I need it. I have to have it. It's a must. It's an ardent desire. That thinking now is meditation, is really musing over that what you want. So I'll leave with you with this. The universe or God is able, because you have the resources. He says, according to the power that lies within you. The power is already in you. Your job now is just to tap into that power and become the best version of yourselves. And I truly believe that you have all the resources within you to become the best version of yourself.
Absolutely wonderful. Wonderful close to a wonderful show. Curtis, thank you so much, man. I really, really appreciate the conversation and everything you've taken the time to share today. Again, I would encourage everybody to connect, look you up and connect on LinkedIn. Please go to Curtis's website. I'll include all the links in the description for the show and stuff. If you would hang out for just a second, I'm going to take this out. Okay.
Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to bring us to a close to another episode of the Leadership Toolkit with my new friend, Curtis. What a great show. I mean, I love conversations like this. I love connecting with people that are passionate and that know their stuff. I mean, and I've been so blessed on this show to have so many people that come on and share their knowledge, share their expertise, and just help you to be able to, navigate pieces of your leadership journey. And so I hope that today has been helpful for you, what I would encourage you, a couple things. I haven't asked. Please throw some thumbs up on whatever version of the show you're watching. If you're watching on YouTube or Spotify or listening on any, your favorite podcast platform, please throw some thumbs up. Or if you'd leave a 5-star review, that would be awesome. It would sure be appreciated. That's one way that podcasts like this continue to grow. Secondly, and more importantly than that, if you know somebody that would gain benefit from listening to today's show, send it to them. Send them the show directly, because that is something that I think is so valuable and so important. That's how you have impact on people that are in your circle of influence. If you're listening to the show and go, man, I know so-and-so could hear this show, that it would be really good for them, send them the link. So that's the most important thing. That's why I started the show. It's why I do the show. I love it. I certainly gain a ton of knowledge, and I'm just, like I said, beyond blessed to have the people on the show that I have on the show. Most importantly, my hope is that you've gained something from this, and that if you know somebody else, just send them a link and say, hey man, you need to tune into this one. It was a good conversation. So thank you, everybody. I look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday. Until then, stay great. Talk soon, everyone.